So, and let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Kent Koth. I direct the Center for Service and Community Engagement here on campus and also the Seattle University Youth Initiative. And tonight I'm going to draw upon a speech by Ivan Illich called To Hell with Good Intentions. Have you read? Okay.
Everybody's supposed to read.
All right, so you've read it. So I'm gonna become a bit of a jerk in a moment. So I'm gonna become Ivan Illich. So first of all, just know that this is not my normal personality. I'm actually kind of, a kind-hearted, thoughtful person, and that person will return toward the end of our time. I'm going to be here till about 7. So, but for the first part, I'm going to become Ivan Illich, and I want to ask you some questions about your trip, and in particular, some of the intentions that you've described in terms of what you want to do. But before we do that, I want to ask a couple questions. How much does it cost for one of you to go to Zambia? And I know that you're raising money and so forth, so you could say, well, it doesn't cost me anything, but how much does it cost someone to send you to Zambia?
$3,500.
And how many people are going total in Team 1 and Team 2, not just here?
Combined team plus the electrical group, that's another 80. So a total of 27.
Does anyone have a calculator?
Yeah.
And then while we're doing that, what language is spoken in the location in Zambia where you are going?
94,000.
94,000. So the language that's spoken,
English and Tonga.
how do you spell Tonga? And is English spoken by everyone, or? Okay. All right. Okay, so here goes. So again, Ivan Illich, Kent Koth is kind of now gone. Ivan Illich is here. I'm back from the dead. I actually passed away a few years ago, but I'm back here to re-deliver a message which I thought I had delivered back in 1968 to a group of do-gooders who had come to Mexico. But now I'm doing it again with a group of people who are going to Zambia from Seattle University. I just can't believe the kind of presumptuousness that you bring to your work and to what you want to do. And I'd like to borrow upon the words that I shared in 1968 to draw you into a conversation, a dialogue, with the hopes of convincing you not to go to Zambia this summer. So, let me begin. By definition, you folks here from Seattle University, cannot help being ultimately vacationing salespeople for the middle-class American way of life, since that is really the only life that you know. A group like this could not have developed unless a mood in the United States had supported it, the belief that any true American must share God's blessings with his poor fellow humans. The idea that every American has something to give, and that at all times may and can and should give it, explains why it occurred to students that they could help. In my case, I was writing about Mexicans, but now I'm going to be speaking about Zambians. Zambians developed by spending a few weeks in their villages. You, like the values you carry, are the products of an American society of achievers and consumers with its two-party system, its universal schooling, its family car influence. You are ultimately, consciously or unconsciously, salespeople for the delusive ballet and the ideals of democracy, equal opportunity, and free enterprise among people who haven't the possibility of profiting from these. What say you? So if you take a moment to pair up with the person next to you in terms of what's your response to the critique that you're just vacationing salespeople for our way of life and that there's no way that you'll be able to connect with the people in Zambia when you're going there. And then we'll kind of enter into a dialogue. Okay, vacationing salespeople for a middle-class way of life. What do you say? Are you stopped in your tracks? Are you ready to rescind your opportunity to go to Zambia and just stay here? What do you say?
No.
No. Why? What's your response?
Buy, because there might not be that skilled labor there.
Scylla, can I ask, do you have construction skills?
I don't.
Are you trained as an electrician?
No, I'm not. But what I will be there.
So then why are you going?
Well,
if they're asking for electricians, then what skill do you have?
I will be there to assist them in whatever they need. I don't have that skill, but I do have the ability for that cultural interaction that I'm going there for.
So couldn't there be someone there who could help them if they're looking for particular electrical needs? Shouldn't we send electricians and then someone in Zambia just help them?
Yeah, totally. But the people in Zambia wouldn't be gaining as many cultural interactions with people from.
So, and I don't want to pick on one person, so I'm going to put this back out to kind of all of you. So why, a number of you in your introduction said you love travel, you love cultural interactions. So there's not Zambians to my knowledge that are kind of here in the neighborhood, but there are a lot of Somalis, and there are a lot of Eritreans, and there are a lot of Ethiopians, folks from Africa. You want cultural exchange, why don't you just walk 6 blocks down the street to Yesler Terrace? Why do we need to get on a plane? If you go to Yesler Terrace, you'll be connecting with people on their terrain. They'll
I mean, in their established neighborhood in the States, yes, but they are nevertheless the underrepresented minority in this country. And so I think, which isn't to say that the group we'll be helping isn't an underrepresented minority in Zambia, as small villages are probably, I don't know. They don't have access, obviously, to electricians, and that's why they couldn't ask for it, I guess.
Do you have a background in being an electrician?
No, but I operate a mean buzzsaw.
Right. Does anyone else in Zambia know how to run a buzzsaw?
I'm sure they do.
All right, so let's turn to another passage from the speech. And it'll take us a little bit further into to our topic. And where am I? You start your task without any training. No, actually, we'll back up a moment. All you will do in a Zambian village is create disorder. At best, you can try to convince a Zambian girl that they should marry a young man who is self-made, rich, a consumer, and as disrespectful of tradition as one of you. At worst, in your community development spirit, you might create just enough problems to get someone shot after your vacation ends and you rush back to your middle-class neighborhoods where your friends make jokes about, in this case, spicks and wetbacks, which is referring to a derogatory term towards Mexicans. In your case, particularly maybe about maybe the other derogatory terms. You start on your task without any training. Even the Peace Corps spends around $10,000 on each Corps member to help him or her adapt to their new environment and to guard against culture shock. How odd that nobody ever thought about spending money to educate poor Zambians in order to prevent them from the culture shock of meeting you. In fact, you cannot even meet the majority which you pretend to serve, even if you do speak the language, which most of you, it sounds like you do because of English. You can only dialogue with those like you. African imitations of the North American middle class. There's no way for you to really meet with the underprivileged since there is no common ground whatsoever for you to meet on. So let's take another moment, pair up, and kind of respond to that passage. All right, let's come back together and let's hear from others who haven't had a chance to respond. The Peace Corps spends $10,000 on training Peace Corps members to serve. How come the folks who are going to meet you haven't been trained to deal with the culture shock of meeting you? And how much time have you actually spent here on campus preparing yourself for where you're going? What's your response?
Well, we have.
Let's see if we can hear from a few others. Sorry. So you're on your way. I'm making progress here. It sounds like you're on your way to not going. That's good.
Cultural integration.
We've met people who have participated in cultures and
So Matthew, why do you have to travel halfway across the earth to have this experience then? Why, if you can have the same experience here in Seattle?
But it's not the same. It's not, I don't want to say it's extremely different.
That's because it's much more dangerous.
Humans are humans.
It's much more dangerous.
Over there?
It's
I would say
dangerous.
Seattle's more dangerous.
No, yes, not around physical danger, but around the danger that, even Illich will step out of it. Yes, you're absolutely right. But it's more of a danger of, and the danger of what we bring there. Because it's out of our cultural context, and it's not necessarily the same rules. And so it seems like we go and we kind of mess up. Even if we get a little bit of sense of training.
I see what you're saying, and we could mess up. We can make some large with that mindset.
So I'm going to go back to a line of questioning from a little while ago. How many of you had, so the folks in Zambia are asking for electricians?
More plumbers, actually.
Plum,
Yeah, this is actually more
Plumbers.
related.
plumbing,
These students aren't relative.
plumbing and electricians and nurses. How many of you have a skilled background in nursing, plumbing, or electrician? As an electrician. So why don't the four of you just go? You have skills to deliver, so why don't the four of you go, and why are the rest of you sitting here? Digital design, they're not asking for digital design, Naomi.
I have to defend myself.
Okay.
And then I needed to go there to prove that it's possible. That's really my...
So this is about Naomi's agenda. This is about Naomi
Yes,
imperialistically bringing art to the people of Zambia who haven't asked for it because they've asked for electricians. And
because they don't know how to express art within the limited resources.
you don't know if they probably have a
They
rich
have
art and
amazing
culture.
art, amazing art, but they don't know how to communicate with us too. So we need to find some way to communicate how we can be, student says, humility, but at the same time, that's really wrong to take up their resources in their culture
Yeah.
and then doing my agenda. So I'm aware.
So you're making the argument for me. It's really wrong to take up their time, their
Exactly.
resources for
But I
Naomi's
have a very
agenda.
strong argument afterwards.
So can you refund your plane ticket?
No.
No?
No, I'm selfish in that way. So I admit I'm selfish, but at the same time, my argument is I'm aware we're taking up resources, maybe our money or our shower, electric, all kinds of resources, maybe save so many kids out there.
And entering into a relationship and leaving, geographically, physically relocating.
So it sounds like for many of you, so that few of you have some particular skills that are being asked for, but for many of you it's about learning, it's about cross-cultural exchange, it's really about you. It's kind of a you want to go to Africa, you want to learn, you want to put your Jesuit education values to work as you in your introduction.
But I think that, yes, we're learning, but I think that they are as much being.
But did they ask to come and learn? Did they ask, we want folks from the United States to come because we want to learn from them? We want to, or do you just show up and they have no choice but to learn or to figure out kind of how to engage with you?
I mean, but I think that.
So I want to ask another question. So $94,000 to send you all there. So what, does anyone know what the annual income, the average annual income is of a person in Zambia?
Someone being paid very well would be making $5 a day. In the area that we go, it's about $1 a day.
So it's about $300 a year.
At $5 a day, you could pay 52 people an entire annual salary.
Wow. So $94,000 that you're spending to go there could pay 52 people for an entire year. So why not just raise $94,000 and send it to a trusted source there in order to employ people?
Isn't that what the US has been doing for years?
Yeah, but now, yes, it is, and Ivan Illich would totally agree with you because Ivan Illich is a major critique of U.S. foreign aid. But my sense is that PWAB is a smart organization that you say these Jesuits who are on the ground and they would be able to figure it out, and there's sort of trusted sources. So it's around trusted sources, and it's not about a U.S. diplomatic effort or sort of U.S. interests. It's about humanitarian justice, Jesuit values. So $94,000, if it's thoughtfully used, could make a big impact. So let's take a moment just to dialogue on why not just send the resources? Why do you have to personally go there? And then we'll come back together, and I promise you we're coming to a close with Ivan Illich being a jackass. So we'll just...
Money can solve the problem.
Money doesn't want to solve the problem.
Will be
Okay, $94,000, 52 Zambians employed for an entire year. It's simple math. It seems just a just thing to do is just collect the money, cash in your plane flights, take the penalty for whatever it takes to cancel your plane flight, send it there. Pretty easy solution. Then we can all go, we can go to the beach, or we can do something fun here that we could go and visit different cultures here in the States. Yeah, Joyce.
And I think that's a bad idea. And let me tell you why. Because if you do
It's not Kent, Yvonne, yeah.
So, $94,000, if we just send that down, which is giving money.
So Joyce, what department do you work in here at the university?
Yeah, I was in the registrar, and they don't want registrars.
So, but even, well, that's like so 5 minutes ago. So you work in enrollment services, and we give scholarships to students to come to the university so they can afford to come here. Do we go and personally deliver them and say, here's your scholarship, and it's so wonderful that you have it, and can we talk about your experiences? Or do we just write them a note and write them a letter and give it to them?
It's a down payment on the Heart and Mind connection we're going to give them when we get here. So we're not giving money blindly. We're actually providing exactly that, which I'm expressing is why we go there in the first place.
So we're paying $94,000 for a Heart and Mind connection.
And
Isn't there any way we can do that through the internet? Pardon?
compounding interest.
Compounding interest.
It's about
Give them cash.
Oh, good point.
Clearly, we're saying they need
I have to
this.
argue that somebody sent me money randomly. Oh, I'm so.
If someone sent you $94,000, you wouldn't.
But it sends
Cycle of charity.
it sends a message of helping. Well, on the end of receiving, it's receiving money, which is dangerous for their own.
So if we-
morale.
if we-
But on the end of who's giving, we're then sending the message that all you need to do is get a really high-paying corporate job in the United States. You can write a really fat check and
Yeah.
you can fix problems.
Yeah.
And that's also has a lot of negative.
So the thought, it's a pretty simplistic idea of just sending the $94,000 to the people there. But if we found an organization or a trusted business that wanted to expand and needed some investment, and if they had the investment in their business, then they'd be able to employ more people. Wouldn't that be a wise use of funds?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm on the side with you on this.
Steve is going to cancel the trip. Oh, that's great.
Canceling this trip. I totally agree with you. We've got Father Bird over there. We know Dr. Claudia. That's my...
So Ivan Illich is going to close out his speech, and then we're going to bring this to a close. So so some of you have talked about traveling and the importance of going to be kind of with the people. And so the final part of the speech references that line of thinking. It is incredibly unfair for you to impose yourself on a village where you are so linguistically deaf and dumb that you don't even understand what you are doing or what people think of you. And it is profoundly damaging to yourselves when you define something that you want to do as good or helping, a sacrifice, or giving. I am here to suggest that you voluntarily renounce exercising the privilege which being an American gives you. I am here to entreat you to freely, consciously, and humbly give up the legal right you have to impose your benevolence on Zambians. I am here to challenge you to recognize your inability, your powerlessness, and your incapacity to do the good which you intended to do. I'm here to entreat you to use your money, use your status and your education to travel to Zambia, come to look, come to climb the mountains, enjoy the flowers, come to study, but do not come to help. So how about this final statement, do not come to help? Which I think gets at the heart of your coming, I mean, it might be disingenuous and sort of not very constructive to send a check, but to come without any skills, without any construction skills, and just show up and say, I'm here to help, when there's probably people there who need a job, that seems even far worse. So how do you approach the question of helping? So we'll dialogue one more time, we'll come back together, and then we'll come to a close.
to help fulfill the necessities.
Yeah. Yeah. just know that I struggle with this as well.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Who doesn't? Because you want to, because you want to do it, but
Yeah.
the point seems like good.
Okay, do not come to help. How do you respond? Come to Zambia to travel, to climb the mountains, but don't come to help. Case closed.
Will be affected more or helped perhaps more than you will ever be able to help
So I'm going to bring Ivan Illich to a close, and then Kent's going to come back in the room. And so, Kent, I'm now back. Ivan Illich is gone. A couple of different things. One, first of all, I personally, Kent, not even, about 15 years ago, spent 6 months in Nepal working with street kids in Kathmandu, halfway across the earth. Didn't speak the language, figured out kind of an organization that I trusted that had particular needs and responded to that. And so the experience that sort of I'm indicting you all on, like the fingers point, when you point a finger, three fingers point back at you. And so it's kind of similar critique and kind of a reflective process in terms of my experience there, and also just experiences of going, whether it's other places that I've gone to be of service, or even the same critique can apply in terms of our engagement with Yesler Terrace 6 blocks down the street. So it's just an awareness that this isn't just about Zambia, that it's about kind of multiple different contexts. But a couple different things. So I want to pick up on, Lindsay, on your last point, which is the community may have some stated needs, but all of you made a pretty good argument for the multiple different needs that you have, which you want to learn about another way of life, you want cultural interactions, you want to kind of lead your life differently, perhaps when you come back. There is a kind of a call for humility. You really want to go to Africa. You're pretty needy people. So first of all, I mean, that we sometimes think of needs as just material needs. And we go into a context, so in my case, going to work with street kids in Nepal, these kids have nothing. They're picking up garbage for their life to raise a little bit of money, and then they're coming to a place where they're getting a meal and they're getting some health care. But they have no material resources. And so I could think, these kids are so needy. But in reality, kind of my experience was it's an exchange of, there might be something that I can provide, but I can tell you it wasn't very much. I didn't come with a significant amount of skills, and I didn't probably stay long enough. But there's also a tremendous amount that, in terms of my needs, some of it is just a question of what's the meaning of our lives. In a materialistic culture, which can just sort of breed self-absorption, this country might have the greatest needs on earth in terms of meaning making. So one way of thinking about this is to reverse the perception of who has needs, or at least come into it recognizing that in all reality, except for a couple of you who have some very particular skills that maybe are not present in the places where you're going, you're not really going to help. You're going to be present. You're going to witness. You're going to connect. And perhaps then there is some benefits, and I think it's worth continuing. I really trust Steve and others who have gone in terms of the partnerships that you've set up and how you've approached it, but that there's some value added to your presence there. But it's really about the people in this room and what you want to get out of it. And so one of the other realities is then what one does with something like this once you come back, and how that may lead to one to make different choices with one's life, career, what one does with one's money, because it certainly is beneficial to give money to different organizations, whether it's directly in Zambia or whether it's doing an analysis of poverty in our own country. So it's trying to take the experiences that we take when we go abroad and making them more universal. Thinking of how we vote and what our foreign policy is and what our economic system is and how it affects people on the other side of the earth is an important thing. So some of it is not, I've worked with some students years ago who did service immersion trips or alternative breaks, and they would talk about the week that lasts a lifetime. So they'd go away for a week, but what they learned and what they experienced was something that stuck with them for the rest of their life. So I think it's pretty important to go into this with the largest dose of humility possible, and turn down any real perception, even if you go with specific skills, that you're there to help. And to recognize that actually we're there to, like, the folks you're going to meet are going to help you. A couple of other thoughts I have on experiences like this is that the last part of the argument of why not just go to travel. I don't know Zambia, but I know Mexico and places like that a little bit better. To go to Mexico and travel, you're going to Cancun, you're sitting on a beach, your money is going to a corporation, which the money doesn't really go back to the people, although it might provide really minimal paid jobs to folks who are working there. But to go travel in a place like Mexico or in Zambia, the resources that you're bringing, money that you spend is going to stay local. And you're also having more of a real experience. You're not just having an American experience in terms of sitting on a beach in Mexico. You're having you're getting a better sense of what life is like in another setting. So in that way, the guise of service, to say that you're going there through service, is a benign way of having a pretty deep cultural exchange. So again, to recognize that you're not there to serve, but that the service approach, or this, we're going to go build a house together or work on a construction project together, creates a little bit more sense of equal exchange than drinking a Mai Tai on a beach and having someone come and serve the drink to you. So anyway, and then I would my final thoughts around this question. This is pretty sobering in terms of the costs of going to Zambia and the cost of really going anywhere. And so some of the questions, I guess, that leaves for me are, is there any way of strategizing ways to truly give funds to the folks where you're working? There are different examples. Habitat for Humanity here in the United States, where one's asked to bring funds to help build the house that one is building, as opposed to just bringing the labor. And it's and this issue, and I've done this presentation in different settings. There's a group that goes to Mexico, to Tijuana, and the cost is lower, but the issues are still the same in terms of what funds could be used for. So. And then finally, this statistic, or the amount of money, really actually puts more weight on all of your shoulders in terms of, why are you doing this? That it's not kind of just a willy-nilly something I want to do. It's pretty serious in terms of what maybe the expectations are afterwards that you place on yourself and what you do when you're there. And I mean, the same thing going to Nepal for me. It costs a lot of money, and to then think of how do I lead my life after I leave there? It's important. So I'm going to close. Interesting, no one pointed out that even Illich is not a Latino surname, because he was talking about Mexico, and so, which is always what people like to go after. He was there for about 20 years when he gave this speech, and he was a priest who was defrocked. He was too radical for the Catholic Church at that point in time. He also had a major critique of he wrote a book on the United States schooling system and how it acculturates people into imperialistic ways of viewing things. So, pretty interesting person. But anyway, no one looked at sometimes a way of addressing Ivan Illich is to dismiss him because he also was an outsider. But I find that it's beneficial for Ivan Illich to sort of ride on one shoulder wherever you're going. And for me and Lee in the Center for Service Communication here on campus is always Ivan Illich whispering in my ear these sweet nothings of you're garbage and why are you doing this and why are you going to help, and because it keeps us a little more honest. So I guess I would even encourage you maybe at some point in your trip to pull this back out and to have a conversation with each other about what is our response at this point midway through this trip to Ivan Illich. So in some ways it's a gift that he's left. It's also laced in the 60s radicalism. It was written 4 days after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and so his rhetoric was particularly heightened. But it's a nice gift to us all. And then finally, the question of two different things. One, here's a thing on cross-cultural lessons and kind of thinking of preparation, and then the action, the reflection, and some different things to think about as you go. And then for those of you who are returning to campus, there are ways of engaging in your service once you come back to campus. So, is it Hannah or Aaron? Aaron. So Aaron, you have 3 more years left at SU, so I'll pass this around. there's lots of opportunities to engage here in the local community, and there are a lot of cross-cultural opportunities as well. So, thanks so much. I think I stand between you and snacks provided by your future president. So.